Hello, this is Sheshachalam from Astroguide Mysore. So today, continuing the series of medical astrology, this is the second class. We are discussing about the first bhava, that is the first house, in detail. So I had given you the Kala Purusha, the parts of the body, starting from Aries, as per the Kala Purusha, or you call it the Vastu Purusha. It is actually placed like that, head onwards to the leg. So it is like head, the neck, the face, the thorax, then chest, and so on. So we are now talking about Tanu Bhava, or the first house. Tanu, Mana, Dhana. These are the three factors which have to be seen from the first house and the second house. So in between, you get the house of wealth also there. Tanu, not in between, mana, that is the mind. So Tanu, Mana, Dhana. So how come two houses can span three particular significations? So let us understand that. When you are talking about body, so as per the Uttara Kalamrita, Dehascha, Avayavascha, Sukha, Asukha, Jara Aste. That means body, Avayava, bones, limbs, structure, the skeleton, the parts of the body is Avayava. That is how it is told. Then you have happiness, unhappiness, the mental state of a person, and old age, Jara, Ayu, longevity. So I'll go through this in detail once again, but I'm referring from Uttara Kalamruta, Brihat Parashara, Hora Shastra, Saravali, and all these epics like the Brihat Jataka, Jataka Parijata, Phaladipika. So I'll not be repeating all this. These are the epics what we are referring to. We are even referring to Sarvartha Chintamani. We are even referring to some of the modern books written by our own Guru Krishna Kumarji, who has written about stellar astrology. He has written about medical astrology, and even our direct Guru, Sudha Tinekar. She is one of the exponents in medical astrology. She is herself a big doctor. I think she is a diabetologist working in Bangalore. So she was our teacher. So she has done a great job in teaching us. So I am referring all these put together along with our own experiences and giving you the teaching. It's not that I am supreme or anything. No, nobody is supreme. In astrology, nobody is supreme. We are even the great Parashara, the sage Parashara, when he writes his thesis, the Parashara Hora Shastra, he has clearly mentioned humbly that all pranams to the gurus who have taught me astrology. When sage Parashara itself is like, who is me and who are the other people in the modern astrological levels? Even I refer to the great, the books written by, commentaries written by many good authors. One of the commentaries which I like of the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra is of Girish Chand Sharma ji. Very good book, excellent book. It's volume 1 and volume 2 big books. I also refer to a lot of books of B.V. Raman, Catechism of Astrology, Manual Hindu Astrology or something like that. So there are a lot of books which we refer, even Predictive Astrology, volume 1 and volume 2, How to Judgment of Horoscopes by B.V. Raman. They are all now like epics for us. We are all young children in front of them. So, going ahead, the first house has three drakana. The drakana, see, when we spoke about the Kala Purusha, it started from 0 degree Aries. So, when I talk about first house, it is something else. The Kala Purusha was the Rashis. But when I talk about the first house, the ascendant sits in the midpoint. That is what I use. That is the technique I use. And I have learned the technique in a particular way. So if I take the first house midpoint as the ascendant, there is a span of 15 degrees on either side. So the midpoint of first house, I take 5 degrees on either side and make it the first Drekana. This is the Drekana of the houses. Don't get confused with the Drekana of the Rashis. Drekana of the Rashis is from 0 degree Aries, 0 degree Aries to 10 degree Aries, 10 degrees to 20 degrees, 20 to 30. It is the Drekana of the Rashis. I have my own practice. That is what I am teaching. That is what is called experience. So my own practice in which I deduce the Drekana of the bhava, that is the house. So I take the midpoint of the first house, midpoint of the seventh house, midpoint of the 10th house. We divide it and then the midpoints will have a buffer of 5 degrees on either side. You make it one Drekana. I will do it on the board also. Next time when I am explaining these things in detail, you will understand, but it's not such a difficult thing. So, the 30 degrees of a house, you will have ascendant in the middle. You will have 10 degrees in the middle, which is called as the first Drakana. You will have the second Drakana, which is the next 10 degrees. You will have the previous Drakana, which is the actual 36th Drakana, that is 12 threes or 36th, behind the ascendant, just immediately behind the ascendant. So that means the first house will contain your skull, your crown of the head, and some parts of the frontal of the face, and some parts of the back of the brain. So the whole brain comes into the thing. So what I have made note of is the crown of the head, the skull, the organs embedded within. So it contains all the parts of the brain, the inner ear, the eyes, and the connection of the eyes to the brain. So the regular eye, which you see, the eyeball and the iris, all these things fall into the second house. We'll come to that later. But the inner part, the nervous system, the veins, and the brain itself, the layer of the meninges. The layer of the meninges is extremely important because in medical astrology, if you know that there are different kinds of problems the meninges can face if you have entry of foreign bodies like bacteria or virus into the meninges cavity. What actually happens is that it starts inflammating, or it creates inflammation. The body starts fighting. Because of this fight going on, there is a lot of pressure which is building into the layer. It is the thin layer between the skull and the brain, actual brain. So that meninges layer is actually protecting the brain. So it fights with any impurity which comes inside, like a bacteria or a virus, and it starts fighting. When it starts fighting, the inflammation creates a bulge. That bulge will go, it cannot hit the skull and come out. It, because the brain is more softer, it goes into the brain. So it hits the brain inside. So once it starts compressing the brain, the nerves and the part of the brain which is damaged will result in the damage of several parts of the body which are connected to those particular areas. So meningitis is a very, very tough, you know, medical problem, what a person can face, and very clearly because of infections. So, the mental state, the psychology is also very important here, because good blood flow into the brain very clearly means good general health. So, that is why when we posit Sun in the ascendant, though it can give other difficulties, it usually gives a difficulty called as Kalvata Yoga, because Sun in the ascendant can make your hair follicles become very dry, and the roots of the hair can become very dry, and you can become bald very soon, or you get too much of hair fall. Though you are trying to maintain a very good lifestyle, you will still see that your hair density is very less. So that's a different issue. But Sun in the first house We call that as the Dhanavantri. Dhanavantri is the god for Ayurveda or for medicines. He himself is sitting there in the first house, will give excellent health. So, sun in the first house, the Karaka for the first house is also sun. Sitting in the east, that is the rising horizon, that is the ascendant, and it gives you beautiful health. So, that is what, when the mental state or the psychology is concerned, the first house is going to play a very important role. So, here we should also understand that the brain is not only the part in the skull or the head. You have the sinus cavities, you have the pineal glands, you have the pituitary gland. There are very important, the most important, the master gland is the pituitary. So this is in the first house. You see that in the first house. So what does these glands give you? When they secrete their hormones, what actually happens is, one, it stabilizes the body activity. We call it the basal metabolic rate, the body mass index. These are all controlled by the pituitary. So it will regulate the other glands and make your body work or function normally. So we need to see these things. The pineal gland is the one which is very, very important for getting into peacefulness, bliss. That is why they tell, no, you, the Agneya chakra, which is controlled by that gland, which is so good that it helps you have empathy, look forward to help people. So that humane attitude or behavior is coming from the pineal gland. And people who's have you know ruffians kind of people, they will have masked their pineal glands will have got destroyed, or there is no connectivity at all. So that means if there are many important hormone producing master glands in the brain, it will regulate major functions of the body. The major function of the body here is to have motor nervous control to the brain. So this is extremely important, because the base or the final shoot of the spinal cord goes and gets embedded into the brain. We call it the stalk or the major base. It goes into the brain and it gets into the cortex, and it goes into cerebellum, not the cortex, the cerebellum, and the it's a yeah. There's one more thing, no. Cerebellum and I forgot it. Okay, anyway, so this is where the spine goes and it gets embedded. Not the medulla oblongata. Is another one which starts from C. Cerebrum. I'm only into the cerebellum. Okay, cerebrum and cerebellum. So the spinal things, the nerves and the veins, it's like a wire harness. Lot of connections that go and get stuck there. So the problems associated with the brain, like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's, problems of associated of mental illnesses like ADHD, OCD, phobias, you know, mm, spastic problems of the motor nerve system, anxiety syndromes, all these things are to be seen from the first house. Down syndrome. So there's a lot of them. There's a big list. So all this have to be seen from the first house, and the overall health of the skin, the pigmentation, whether a person looks fair, the complexion is good, the skin is healthy. More than everything like fairness or complexion, let us understand that whether the skin is healthy, whether the skin is flawless, you can understand from the first house. So, as per Uttar Kalamrita, I'll just read out the points which are helpful for medical astrology, and then I'll go into the BPHS. So, the body, deha, limbs, avayavas, that is the skeleton and etc. Happiness, unhappiness, the mental state of the mind. Old age, ayu, that is the longevity. Hair, the texture of the hair, the smoothness, the roughness, and all these things can be seen from the first house because it is attached to the scalp. So, physical appearance. So, on the whole, the first house is Deha. Deha means body, means physical appearance. And skin, and again in the Uttara Kalamruta, the skin has been referred. Sleep, good sleep is referred. Nidravastha. So, good sleep and overthinking both are to be seen from the first house. So, if overthinking is high, sleep is less. If the sleep is high, thinking is less. So, the health clearly is balanced in both these particular factors. So, free from diseases. If a person has to be free from diseases, the first house has to be seen. So, as I said, the three dirkanas in the first house not only represents your planning and your execution, and also you yourself, that is the present, the planning and the execution, but it also represents one part, that is your foot, that is the feet. The 12th part, that is the 36th drakana, represents your sole of the feet and your toes, whereas the second drakana represents your Agneya chakra. And the first drakana, which is the Lagna, will represent you and what you are, that is the head, the most important identity, the self, that is represented by the first drakana. See, medical astrology is not an easy subject. I will try to explain it as easy as possible. Okay. So, from the BPHS, that is the Bruhat Parashara Hora Shastra, if the ascendant lord, see, I am coming into the next level now. If the ascendant lord is in the 6th, 8th, or 12th, that is the Triksthanas, with a malefic, see, these are all yogas associated with medical astrology. So, if the ascendant lord is placed in the 6th, 8th, or the 12th house with the malefic, the native will be lacking physical comfort due to ill health. So, this is also a broad explanation of Deha Kashta Yoga, which has already been discussed. But if it is not with any malefic influence and is placed in a Kendra or a Trikona, the native will live comfortably with a good health for a long period of time. So, this is also very important. If ascendant lord is either combust or in an enemy sign or debilitated, it causes diseases, or the person is more susceptible to get into difficulties of infection and also immunodeficiencies and autoimmune problems. So the ascendant lord and the points associated in the ascendant in the Sarvashtaka Varga are very important for any astrologer when he gets into predictions. So benefics in a Kendra will surely mitigate the issue. Benefics in a Kendra or Trikona will mitigate and reduce the issue, but bring some stability, but it cannot eradicate the whole issue once and for all. So, when we discuss the first house, we are very much clearly aware that we are not going into other aspects of astrology because we are doing medical astrology. Very clearly, we will stick to it. Even for the next few classes where the second, third, fourth houses and the 12th house comes with the second lord, third lord, fourth lord, we will clearly try to stick to medical astrology and its formulations. So thank you very much for today's class.